Feel like sun on my skin. So this is love. I know it is. I know it sounds super cliche, but you make me feel some type of way. This is falling in love. 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 Feel like sun on my skin. So this is love. I know it is. I know it sounds super cliche, but you make me feel some type of way. This is falling in love. I know it sounds super cliche, but you make me feel some type of way. This is falling in love. This is falling in love. This is falling in love. This is falling in love.
Go. Go. Hello, everyone. Wait, is my mic working? Can you guys hear me? Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of me bringing on a random guest, dragging them on to talk to them and interview them and interrogate them. Nick, are you ready for today's interrogation?
Well, when you put it that way, I'm not so sure now.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Please let me know if you can or cannot hear me. I have been having some technical issues, so while you guys let me know if I screwed this up, I would like to introduce today's guest is Nick Carlson Press. Nick is quite a polarizing figure with 4,000 subscribers, which I do have to congratulate you on, by the way. That was a good milestone, and he has over 500,000 views, which is more than me. I'm jealous. And he's well known for many things. First of all, he's written a book, which means he's 10 times smarter than any of us in chat. Wrote his own book, Hell's Golf. He also did one of the most popular videos that basically broke FNAF internet, I would say, for a while, which was reimagining Security Breach. And then, quickly after, he dissected every single piece of FNAF literature. He is Scott Cawthon and Scholastic's worst nightmare. Let me introduce him one more time. That's Nick Carlson Press.
That's flattering. That's the nicest thing I've heard all day.
Aw, well, I'm happy that I could be the one to say it.
Aw.
So, Nick, I just want to let you know that today we will be talking a little bit about FNAF, and I know that kind of hurts you just a bit, so please just bear with me, okay?
Sure thing. I've already endured a lot of pains today. This is just another splinter. Don't worry.
So, all right. So the first question I got to ask you is, because obviously you have a background with FNAF if you're covering it in the first place. What was your introduction to FNAF, the beginning, when you joined the scene, however that happened? When was the first time you interacted with the franchise?
Hello, everybody. My name is Markiplier, and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's. That was my first introduction. That was way back when the first game dropped, back in, what was that, 2014?
I think so. Yeah, it was August
Yeah.
of 2014. Yeah, because I think it's the 9-year.
It was Markiplier, as was most fans' introduction to Five Nights at Freddy's, the OG ones rather. Like I was, I think, about 15 or 16 when that dropped. I was like the perfect age to follow a game franchise like that, and I've just been like checking in with every entry, following my favorites. Let's players, playing the games whenever I could myself. I don't want to sound like too like pretentious, but I do feel good to knowing that I was like part of the OG crowd.
The beginnings. One of
Hmm.
the best. Also, you got introduced by one of the best YouTubers of all time, so there's no shame in
Hmm.
that. I gotta ask you, what you said you played the games yourself a little bit. What was your favorite game that you played?
Favorite game? Definitely the original. That's just a classic. Everything was
FNAF one.
just yeah
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, FNAF one. Everything was just so like refined, so like so fresh, so biting. It was it definitely was a new experience for me. Like I don't think there had been a game quite like it before that. Um, and yeah, it just presented horror and in a new way, a new angle on it too. Because I don't think there had been much horror media surrounding like Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, basically. So
I was gonna
and
say. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think I was at the perfect age because I remember like going to Chuck E. Cheese's
Same.
for my kids' birth for my for not my kids for other kids' birthday parties back when I was like 5 or 6. I just still I still remember how Chuck E. Cheese's smell,
Dude, they
because
do. They have a smell. I swear, it's like Subway. You know, like Subway, they have like the bake exhaust,
yes.
and like it's exactly like that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so yeah, FNAF just like connected with me and it unlocked like those sensations. It just because I was there in Chuck E. Cheese's heyday, so it really did hit me in that way, and I think it also hit a lot of people who are around my age now, but who are also like mid-teens when FNAF first came out. So I think that's one reason why it was such a success. It hit the right topic for the right generation.
I used to go to Chuck E. Cheese. I think I was the last personally. I think that I was the last generation that went to Chuck E. Cheese as a kid. I don't think like my younger brother didn't go. I think I was
Mhm.
the last generation. Like for example, I think arcades. This is a really weird side rant. Arcades died the second they turned to cards. I don't know why, but there was something so fun about putting coins in the machines to like inserting coins to play a new game, and you'd like put like those dollar bills in, and just coins would pile up, and that's what you'd used to play. That was like for some reason I just have like nostalgia just for that.
I get it. I mean, are Dave and Buster's still a thing though? Like those kind of style restaurants?
Oh yeah, they make billions. They actually epitomize like the perfect transition from arcades from like the past, I'll call it, to the future. They did really good.
Hmm. I'm glad arcades are still being kept alive.
Yes, I'm glad so that the PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo didn't exactly kill them all just yet.
I will admit, whenever I can, if I find a big Buck Hunter arcade machine, I will play that. Even now at 25.
I was so bad at that game as a kid, and I wasted so many tokens trying to play that. I would always shoot the wrong thing.
It was worse when it was an old machine and the gun calibration was off though. So you end up having to aim like 3 feet up and to the right just to shoot a deer.
It was so the calibration was bad. I was bad. I was a little kid. The shotgun was like taller than me. I was a short kid, so the shotgun was basically my height. So imagine a little kid carrying that
Well,
around.
that's just a you problem at that point.
It's a skill issue. It's a skill
Yeah.
issue. All right, continue on the topic of FNAF. I gotta ask.
Mhm.
Also, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Botrix, welcome to the stream, you stupid bot. I swear, you're always 10 minutes late. How is a bot late to a stream? You are actually programmed to arrive on time. Employees these days. Just kidding. He's free. Uh, okay, but that side rant. That side rant gone. What is your favorite FNAF animatronic?
Oh wow, it's like choosing my own children. Uh, I love Funtime Freddy. Honestly, I just love his voice, his personality. The design just really hits me. Kellen Goff is just what really brought something to that character, which is it just instantly catches in your head. You look at Funtime Freddy and you just hear Kellen Goff.
Kellen Goff not only did a good job at that character, and I guess I'm just underestimating the Funtime Freddy fans because we had Biohazard on. We had Biohazard on Wednesday, and he said the exact same thing. So I guess I just didn't pick up on the Funtime Freddy love. But looking back, I can completely understand how you like that character. After the talk, I like looked at. I was like, what makes Funtime Freddy so good? And then I realized it's the voice of like that like twisted, warped all the animatronics are kind of twisted and warped because they're
Yeah,
all trying to kill you.
Yeah, and if you remember, like Sister Location was the first FNAF game that really utilized voice acting. So hearing the characters actually hearing their character actually come out through their voice was a big shock, and it was a refreshing change after 4 games. So I think that's another reason why it just sticks with me, and and it just resonates with me so well because of that.
Omega said he said the quote of Funtime Freddy, "What a party pooper," and then "Hey Bon Bon, go get him," and that's so true. Though I don't like the Ultimate Custom Native Sister Location, I cannot decline that those quotes are actually hilarious. Funtime Freddy aside, I think that's a good point. I think that's great. I think people completely underestimate Sister Location for having voice acting because none of the other games had it, and everyone kind of poops on Sister Location now. But now, like, that was the first game to have an actual story. Like, I mean, it depends on how you feel about those intro cutscenes, like with the voices.
Mm-hmm.
She can dance, she can sing, all that stuff, but I definitely think that was overlooked in its entirety. So now it's time for the scary part. We've talked about the fun stuff, like the games and the animatronic. Now it's time for what is your favorite FNAF book / story? I already know the answer, but for everyone listening and watching, what is your favorite FNAF book / story?
Well, if you're talking about stories, like in any of the
Also, guys, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Right. Can you hear that?
Is there like a dump truck outside or something?
Oh my goodness, dang it. My mom was cooking something and it was smoke. Probably she burned something.
Hilarious.
Oh, that's great.
Tell her to lay off the oil.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Sorry guys about that. That's not gonna be fun. There's a fire. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Favorite story, favorite book.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sandwich Lee. Okay, I'm kidding. No. Okay. So favorite. So I guess of the original like novel trilogy, The Silver Eyes is definitely just the most like competently written, and it's also just the best FNAF story in my opinion because it's the only one that kind of stayed on course. The other two just really fell off and just spiraled into sci-fi insanity. When it comes to the stories like the Frights and the Tales, I guess my favorite Fright is Lonely Freddy. Because that caught me off guard so much, the way that these two human protagonists were so like psychotically written, and the surprising depth that they were given that we just did not see in any other Fazbear Fright after that. And then of course the twist is handled really well, and the concept of the Lonely Freddies, these like robots that just follow around the lonely kids to make them feel better. That's just so like that just really tickled me. It was so like deliciously cruel, and I loved it. So that's my favorite Fright. Favorite tale. I think it has to be B7 because that, like Lonely Freddy, just came right the hell out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like a FNAF story. It feels like something really like dark, like someone went somewhere they shouldn't have, and I just love that. I was caught off guard, and I let it in. It was great.
I just gotta give you credit. That was actually hilarious. Connection terminated. I don't know what All right, so I agree. I think that we both agree that the best books were the original trilogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were cohesive.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. Yeah. They were the most cohesive narrative, I'll call it. While the Fazbear Frights did all take place in the same overall universe, like, there's the FNAF cinematic universe pretty soon. There's the FLU FNAF literature universe. I will state that they just did. I love Scott, I love FNAF, but I think that the Fazbear Frights were just so. For example, just for our people here, just so they understand, imagine going from Lonely Freddy to Gumdrop Angel. What a good story to a bad story, and then you have stuff like Blackbird, which was like paranoia incarnate. Like, what was that? Like, I just think that the Fazbear Frights are just they just make no sense. They just make no sense going from each one to the other. And that's why when people tell me that the Fazbear Frights are canon to the games, I cry just a little bit. So
the intent, I saw the intent after like the first book. I saw that the intent was to just make FNAF Goosebumps. I never thought of them as canon to the books, and that's one thing I mentioned in my early book reviews, is that you should look at the books as supporting documents, not canonical ones. Because you should look at these things that exist in an alternate timeline, but kind of look for clues that might explain what's going on in the main game canon.
I think that one thing that people actually, you know what? Let's actually hold on this topic because we're going to come back to it, because I want to talk about your series and all the stuff that you've talked about. But I want to ask you, just because we're talking about favorite things, I want to ask you what person inspired you to do YouTube? I know that you've been doing it for a while. You've done Outlast, FNAF, and then obviously you've been doing like writing. One of my favorite videos that you've done, just so you know, is like talking about nature. That like nature video where you just sat outside. I don't know why. That's like one of my favorite videos you've done. So you've done a lot of content. What's inspired you, or maybe what creator would you point to that's inspired you to do content?
Holy crap. Okay, prepare to go back in a time capsule. Go back to all the way back to like I want to say like 2010.
Okay.
So there's a guy. I don't know. I think the channel's long abandoned by now, but his name was CyberKiwi27, and it was just him and his neighborhood friends just making really dumb sketches in their neighborhood. And I saw that as when I was a kid. I was around their age, so probably around 11 or 12, and it just resonated with me so much because there was such like unbridled, like unpretentious, chaotic energy to these 11 to 12-year-old kids like making these legitimately like funny like comedy sketches about like zombies or like treasure maps or what, just dumb, silly, innocent things like that. That just really hit me. And that's when I saw that, and that's when I knew like I could do the same thing. I could also like write things and film things. All I needed was some time, some equipment, and a few friends. The friends part was kind of tricky, but I got by.
How long have you been on YouTube? Like maybe not as a viewer, but like as a content uploader, creator.
My main channel, like not my main channel, but like my personal channel that I use for just browsing casually. I started that in like 2012, so I've been on YouTube for well over 10 years.
Wow. Okay. Now, well, okay, that's a long time. I've only been on YouTube. Actually, it was funny. My beginning was like Markiplier. I think it was literally like I started watching YouTube for the first time, and then a week into it, I found Markiplier and he was playing FNAF. That's why I'm so tied to this franchise. It was my intro. So that's actually really interesting. CyberKiwi27. If you do ever see this, you have a friend. Look at that. You have a supporter who has been following. Is the channel still exist?
I think the channel exists. I don't think they're uploading content anymore because I think the main guy, I think his name is Richard. I think he's just moved on to bigger, better things.
And YouTube wasn't like monetized at all back then, so there was no incentive to stay.
Yeah, no.
So I want to ask you, because one of your most popular, not one of the most popular, but one of your more recent videos that's been doing well was, well, actually, let's be honest. Your most popular video is reimagining Security Breach. But you decided recently that you were not going to reimagine Ruin. So I've seen your video. Maybe not everyone in the chat has seen the video, but I want to ask you, I asked Biohazard, I asked everyone else I've had on, what was your rating for Ruin? I know you might not have played it, but you've seen gameplay of it.
Out of like 10?
Yeah, out of 10. And then we'll dive into some of the other stuff, especially what you said in the video.
I'd probably say a good 6.5.
6.5. That's not bad. That's like not that's passing.
It's a competent game. I'd enjoy playing it. So
now for those who just give you some just give some context. Nick made a video where he basically you didn't do the same thing as Security Breach because you didn't feel like it needed that massive overhaul. But in Ruin, you basically commented how the game it improved in a lot of ways, and funny enough, it was in ways that you actually stated in your original video in Security Breach. So I definitely think they watched the video, or they hate watched it. But in some way, they probably saw it, or someone did. Your video, the Reimagining Security Breach video, since I keep talking about it, might as well just cover it. Your Reimagining Security Breach video did break the FNAF internet sphere, I would say.
A fact I'm very proud of.
Yeah, it broke onto the scene. That's how I actually found you and your content. And then I think that people, first of all, just if you I don't know if you mind if I cover this, but some people were not ready for your video. I think some people were not ready for the Nick Carlson press take on Security Breach. And I think that's a lot of them, sadly with the internet, they didn't do any actual context research, didn't realize your background in writing the games you've played, so they did zero due diligence to any of that. But I will say that it was a great video because of the fact that no one had done it. Everyone complained about Security Breach. I complained about Security Breach. Oh, it had bugs. Oh, the lore is confusing. But no one was like, all right, I mean, you hired an artist, right? I just want to get that clear.
Yes.
Nick hired an artist to do all like you did redrawings, you did everything, and I gotta ask you, what made you want to make the video in the first place?
Well, it's like you said, people complained about Security Breach for a solid year, and I of course had my complaints with it, but I truly thought that Security Breach was just such a catastrophe in terms of its presentation and what it wanted to be, and like what
Mm-hmm.
it tried to say it was. I was like, this is like actually like hurting me to see what like what this game has done, and it just kind of like it was more than just a simple like I knew that I could have made a video essay about complaining about it, but I just knew that wouldn't be enough because just I said Ruin presentation wise was a good game. Security Breach presentation wise was not. Like it was just fundamentally flawed, like from the get go. Like from the gameplay to the story direction, everything about it was just wrong. And I was just like, okay, so I have this opportunity, but I also just don't just want to complain. I want to show off kind of what I'm capable of, and I want to prove the weight of my words. So I shilled out some money, hired an artist, spent a good 3 months commissioning art, putting this video together.
3 months?
And
Okay, that actually caught me by surprise. Wait, you said 3 months?
yeah, because my artist lives in like Germany or something, and it just took a while for us to balance our jobs with also visiting these drawings. He drew about over 30 of them.
Wow. Okay, I did not know that was three months. But yeah, it was a great project. I feel like 98% of the people that watched it walked away and were like, "Wow, that was cool." Like, I think it was generally. I mean, maybe do you have another? Do you think otherwise or?
98% thought it was cool.
Like it was a
It-
good good conceptually, like the idea that instead of complaining about security breach we should actually talk about what we could do to fix it, and you took the initiative.
I think if that was the takeaway, a lot of people had. They either didn't vocalize it or just that wasn't their primary focus, as I'm sure you could understand. Because with a lot of people, the takeaway of the video wasn't the idea I had. It was actually the way the ideas were presented with the art.
I think that to just talk about people vocalizing it, this is just a general YouTube thing. Like
Mhm.
liking a video isn't even a thing anymore. I mean, I've been like I was watching YouTube earlier. I don't see anyone say like hit the like button. No one says that. No one. Some people don't even say hit the subscribe button. I just was wondering. Like, I feel like now, like no one vocalizes or like shows it. But definitely, I know on your video there was some talk back from people. And do you consider it fair criticism, or how did you respond to the criticism at first when you got it? Were you surprised? Were you? What was your initial reaction?
I was okay. So I had an idea that the video would be controversial, but I just don't expect it to be noticed on the scale that it did, and I completely underestimated just mostly FNAF Twitter. That's where most of the fire started, was on Twitter.
That's true.
Um,
Very true.
um, yeah, much of the criticism actually was good faith, and I did take it, and that's what inspired me to make Pizzaplex VHS a few months later,
I was
because
just about to talk about that.
one because I said in that video, or in the description rather, I said one of the most common good faith critiques is that it would have not only been more accessible but also more appropriate for the child death sequences to be in 8-bit minigame forms, as we saw in FNAF 2, 3, and 4. So that's what inspired me to develop or co-develop Pizzaplex VHS.
Guys, if you have not seen it or played it, Nick, with the help of the same artist, right? The same artist?
Hmm.
The same artist made like I mean, I'll call it an 8-bit game, but it was basically like security. It was very interesting. It was like a different way of telling a story. I mean, if you want to give me the rundown of what the original concept and idea was from your point of view.
Right. So if you remember from reimagining Security Breach, I depicted these nightmare sequences that Gregory would have after each night. After he kind of defeats each animatronic, he would then be treated with a nightmare from the perspective of the child that each animatronic had killed. And it was in those sequences depicting the graphic murders that caused the controversy. And that was the thing that people, the good faith commenters said that you could have changed to 8-bit mini games. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. So that's what I did. With Pizzaplex VHS, I was trying to basically recreate the death mini games you see in FNAF 2, or the in between nights mini games you would see in FNAF 4, where there's not a lot of real gameplay. It's just kind of a story that you walk through, and it's supposed to depict from the perspective of the animatronics what led to them getting corrupted and what led to them enacting a brutal fate upon their victims.
That was so creative. Omega just said it. That was so creative. And I watched like Dawko, Fusion Gamer, Theft King. I watched them play it. And the same comment that they said every time was how nice it was to see Security Breach, like concept, fan games, anything like that. Like what you made.
Yeah, and that surprised me too. I think Fusion said that in his game, or it might have been Dawko. I can't remember, but they both
Everyone
mentioned
said that actually. I just rewatched Theft King play it. It was like it was.
Okay. Well, I guess the common sentiment around that I didn't even realize at the time is that there just has not been much Security Breach centric fan games. I didn't realize that. So I guess Pizzaplex VHS like breaking out really kind of showed people what we could be capable of. Which I was only in retrospect I was proud of that.
That was it was very cool. I even played it. I think I played it on stream. It was on like Twitch, so like no one saw it, but it was still so cool, and I still would rank it better than a lot of other fan games because it was so unique in concept. And like a lot of fan games can copy the same thing of like sitting in an office and interacting with animatronics, but you were trying to tell a story. And my favorite thing was the at the end when you had the Glamrock Freddy one. Like the Glamrock Freddy, and like the eyes turned purple. It was almost like you were feeding into the FNAF lore, like the Glitch Trap FNAF lore.
Well, yeah, and at the time I didn't realize that Glitch Trap was the mimic or whatever we're saying it is nowadays. So I really was that was one thing I just really wanted to push with my reimagining is that Glitch Trap is still there, messing with the technology, and that Vanny was kind of like his man or woman on the ground.
That was actually awesome. The Easter egg of where you go back and you'll see Vandy standing there.
Mm-hmm.
That was so cool. I'm telling you, that was a gem. Like that was a gem. I think that will be. I mean, obviously the FNAF fan games, a lot of them go without attention, but I think that your fan game, or you and who you worked with, you guys made a fan game that'll actually leave an imprint because not only was it the first of like Security Breach fan games, like people actually wanted to talk about the game, but it was something that I feel like everyone walked away with like, wow, that was cool.
Thank you.
You also told a story, which I really liked. Like a lot of fan games, they just all give you like a phone call that doesn't matter, talk about some restaurant that doesn't matter.
So you're a night guard, and there are some kids that were killed here 20 years ago. Just survive the night, check the doors, check the cameras, blah blah blah.
You literally just I think that actually is someone's recording this right now and they're going to use that in an upcoming game. You should ask for royalties.
I seriously, like, there was a time I was watching years ago I was watching a PewDiePie play some FNAF fan games, and I just could not tell whether the phone guy voices were ironic or not because that trope had just been so overused to death, and I could not tell which ones were being sincere and which ones were trying to be like a parody or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of honestly just made yours like more unique is that it was telling an actual story. You had actual kids who were like meeting these animatronics, and the moon and the sun one was actually my favorite out of all of them. I love the Glamrock Freddy like with the eye change, but I still think that the moon and sun one was one of the best.
Cool. Thank you.
Now, we have to get to the FNAF books because you have read every single FNAF book. You have read every single one. Now, I got to ask you, how long were you in therapy after that?
So here's the thing. I was in therapy. However, I wasn't a fan of any of my therapists, so I led them all away to the Pizzaplex to kill them. I think about 3 or 4 of them I've gone through already. So
I have to ask you a question. Do you happen to have the initials of GGY?
I don't think there's even a single G in my name. So.
Oh.
I don't know. I'll have to ask my mom. Who knows? Maybe I'm in witness protection. I don't even realize it.
Exactly. All right, so to obviously talk about the FNAF books, we jabbed the GGY, but I
Mhm.
have to ask you, what are you've read them all, and I know that you've been critical of them because they have been. Um, okay, listen, guys. If you watch Nick's videos and you think that he goes too hard on these books, remember these books are made by Scholastic and published by Scholastic, one of the largest publishing companies ever. They are behind some of the best books that I've read as a kid. And those books definitely were better than the Fazbear Frights and FNAF books. So when Nick talks about them, you have to hold them to a high standard. And I think that's what you did. So I have to ask you, what were the major criticisms that you walked away and still walk away with from the way that they've created these books and what they've done with it?
So, just to clarify, I when I review these books, I speak from a just storytelling perspective first. I review them as books and as FNAF lore second. I hardly ever talk about lore because one of the things I mentioned in my reviews is that a book ought to stand on its own, disconnected from the lore, because I don't think you should excuse quality just for fan service. So, um, I remember I think I had three major problems with the books. I'm talking about the Fazbear Frights. I think like the first major problem was just they took themselves too seriously. Every book was just written the same. Every book tried to like every book on the back cover said, these are spine chilling tales enough to unsettle even the most hardened FNAF player or something like that. I mean, in retrospect, that just reeks of like a marketing tactic to try and like make kids feel like tough for reading the books.
Like
But
Goosebumps?
yeah, but at the same time, it's just they really felt like they could get away with that and have their first story feature Spring Daddy driving a car.
I still can't believe that they did that. Sorry, someone was calling me. I still can't believe that they did that. They actually tried having Spring Bonnie Into the Pit. I saw Slimy Snails. You said that. I love Into the Pits. That was hilarious. The driving. Uh, and I think you're completely right when you say that. It's like they took themselves way too seriously at first. But I have to ask you, you said that they took themselves way too seriously.
Mhm.
So I noticed it myself, and I have to ask you when it comes to the Fazbear Frights. I think I actually want to talk about the original trilogy in a second because I feel like
Okay.
we both have a general same idea when it comes to that. But I have to ask you, did you feel like the quality of the Fazbear Frights just completely flatlined as time went on?
There was a definite dip, I think, after around book 5 or 6, which makes sense because I've come to hear that I think the first 5 collections were initially commissioned, but then they tacked on an extra 6 or 7 after that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were added on after because they realized that they were popular. They were
Mhm.
selling well, so you got to make your money. And
Yeah, yeah. So one second
no,
before
go
we
ahead.
go on, going back to what I said I had 3 issues. Issue number 2 was that they were tonally inconsistent. I don't think they had a good grasp on their audience. And issue number 3 was there was a lack of variety and diversity of voice, meaning especially with the antagonists. So just to finish that question.
No, 100%. I also loved that you made, like, if you guys don't know, Nick, and during his as he was reading them, you would come up with, I wouldn't say, like, I mean, one was like Blackbird syndrome. That was one of them.
Mhm.
What were the other conditions? You came up with like a
Yeah,
actual like medical dictionary for things that would
yes,
happen in.
I call it the Fazbook Medical Index. These are fake diseases that I diagnose the Fazbear Frights and the Tales with, as kind of like ways of critiquing a certain trope or story direction that I found recurred a lot in a lot of the stories. Blackbird syndrome was first. Then there was a phasmiasis.
What was that one?
Plankton Phasmiasis is when the antagonist tries to basically get inside / become the protagonist. There were a lot of stories like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And Plankton palsy was another. Night malaise, and if I'm forgetting one, I probably am, but those are the 4 main ones that come off the top of my head.
What was the worst one?
The worst one in terms of one that annoyed me the most,
Yeah.
probably Ooh, I normally would have said Blackbird syndrome, but plankton palsy really has been getting on my nerves lately because do you remember plankton palsy?
I don't. I only remember. I only no. Obviously now I know phasmaiasis, but I only know the other one, Blackbird syndrome.
Right. So plankton palsy. I remember I it's a condition to describe the trope when there's a technology introduced in one of the stories that in any other context would be like this like world shattering technological like revelation basically, but instead it's just being used to like kill children. And I remember
So
I
uh,
invoked Plankton from SpongeBob, inventing all this high tech gear to steal the Krabby Patty formula when really he should have been like selling it to King Neptune or something like that because it was like a misplaced priorities thing. It got to me that just in order to make these stories work, the writers had to come up with these ridiculous like ultra futuristic technologies just to make the story concepts work. So that's Plankton palsy.
so to give an example for everyone, would you consider Fetch one of the like a plankton palsy, a robo dog that can connect to your phone via Bluetooth without you even trying?
I'm not sure because that's not exactly a not exact. I wouldn't call that a groundbreaking technology. I think Fetch the character definitely had like his limitations in the way he could communicate and like what he could do and how he could interpret messages. So I'm not sure about that. I think a better example would be somnophobia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
if I remember, somnophobia basically like could yeah, somnophobia. Yeah. The thing in there, the dream sphere could basically like project your thoughts. And I'm just thinking like, why isn't the CIA using this at Guantanamo Bay? Instead, you're using it to lull kids into lucid dream states and then put them in comas. Like
Oh my
stuff like that,
goodness.
stuff like that distracts me and then keeps me from enjoying the story. That's plankton palsy.
I have to say, to just hear stuff like that, and then people try to justify that these books are canon to the games. Somnophobia was a Tales book, right? I just want to make sure
Yes, that was a Tales
it was
book.
a Tales book. So you're telling me that dream catchers or dream projectors are now in the games? Gregory, I need you to put this on.
Gregory, I need you to look into the dream sphere and tell me what you've been thinking about Roxy.
Exactly. Like I just can't take it. I can't take people seriously when they say that. I just can't. So I've already given my take on the book's canonicity. Now, everyone, listen, everyone in chat, I have someone who's read every single book, and I'm gonna ask because I haven't read every Tales book. I've skipped a few. All right, I'm gonna ask you: do you think they're canon to the games? Any of FNAF literature is canon to the games?
Are you asking me or asking the chat?
No, I'm asking you. You've read every single
Okay.
one.
Well, I mean, if Scholastic says the tales are canon, I guess, who am I to contradict them? Um, I always assumed from the beginning, however, that the novel trilogy and the Fazbear Frights existed in some kind of alternate universe. And I don't think Scholastic confirmed the canonicity of any of those books. So I'm forced to conclude that the novel trilogy and the Frights are non canon and the tales are canon. That's only because Scholastic says so.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's actually a really fair point that when I talk to people about whether they're canon, it's funny how so many people skip that. I'm like, one of your biggest, like, the golden bullet, the killing bullet to any argument is you say that Scholastic is said they're canon, but no one ever says that. So I don't know. I don't
It's literally the word of God coming down and saying, actually, this is what's real and what's not.
exactly. But then they throw it out the window. So now I think that maybe Scholastic contradicted. Maybe they said otherwise. And I just haven't heard about it because I do not know what happened to that argument that they were canon and that people would use that as a bullet. So we've obviously talked about their issues that they have. I think you mentioned before they have like spelling errors, right?
Holy crap, yeah. So it became a lot more apparent in the tales. But I think the first time I noticed it was in the story Pizza Kit, which already was a terrible story to begin with. So this so the okay, so in a Pizza Kit, it wasn't a spelling error; it was a formatting error where character names would be swapped. I think there's Peyton and Marley, and at one point, Peyton just turns into Marley for a single line. And
And that's funny considering what happens in that one.
Yeah. Uh, and it's just like stuff like that. Like, and I said it before my video, there are so many of us writers just trying to find our break and make it in the publishing industry. And when we see these ridiculous elementary mistakes in formally published books by Scholastic, which is, as you said, like one of the biggest publishing houses of all time, it's legitimately like depressing and insulting because you know that while you're trying to get your awesome original story in front of a publisher or an agent hoping that they take the bait, these books, the Faz books, are just getting away with this stupid crap only because it's connected to FNAF as a franchise.
And they would never get away with that if they tried presenting that, right? They would instantly get shot down, right?
Yeah. Even in my so part of the publishing process is like writing a cover letter or like a synopsis or something and putting in front of an agent. If there was like a single like formatting error, spelling error, even like a indentation error in my document, it'd be tossed because the agent looks at that and thinks, I cannot trust this guy to write a competent story if he's making mistakes in his cover letter.
So obviously that must be very infuriating and very infuriating as a reader, but like super infuriating for you, who's someone who actually has written a book and you're trying to probably make it as an author, right?
Yes.
And Crashmaster, I want to pause real quick because someone just sent a message that I just want to answer. Crashmaster said, in a Steam post, Scott said that some Fazbear Fright stories are canon and some weren't. Crashmaster, just to quickly counter that, that's not, I think that has been taken out of context. What Scott was trying to say is that they have relevance. Scott, for people to argue that the Fazbear Frights are canon, then all of them would be canon because they're connected. So you can't, I hate to say it, but the Stitch Wraith epilogues connect a lot of the Fazbear Frights. Like, for example, for people that argue, Nick, are you familiar with Stitch Line? People say the Stitch Wraith epilogues are canon to the games.
Go on.
Yeah, so people are trying to say that the Stitch Wraith is that the epilogues are canon to the games. But what doesn't work about them is that the Stitch Wraith is, like, for example, Fetch. Fetch has a battery. The Stitch Wraith takes the battery, right? Therefore insinuating that Fetch happened within the Stitch Wraith timeline, whatever we're going to call it, whatever, right? This timeline that they're building that's canon to the games. Millie from Count the Ways appears later on. You know this, right? Millie from Count the Ways, her spirit appears later on. How does that work? Funtime Freddy doesn't escape the sister location bunker. His shell was supposed to be in the basement. How does that work? It's just like, there's so many issues that Crashmaster, just to like briefly answer that because I just want to talk about that. They just don't make sense. He was just trying to say that some of them have relevance. That's all he was trying to say, because you can't argue that some of them are canon because they're all connected. All right, Nick. I'm sorry about that. I just had the FNAF theorist in me was like, I gotta fix that.
No, sorry. Go ahead and cook.
Thank you. Just to continue on. Final thing about the Fazbear Frights for now. If I had to ask you, or any of this, because we're going to talk about the trilogy, but for the Tales and the Fazbear Frights, what would, if Scott Cawthon said, hey, look, Nick Carlson Press, he analyzed the books. If he was to give you the keys to writing your own Faz book, whatever you wanted to do, I know that you wrote your own, but some of us might not have interacted with it. What would you have done if you could put it in verbal format? Just explain it to us. What would you have? Your process?
My process as so what if I had to write like a Faz story of my own, what would I write about?
A Faz book, whatever you wanted to do with it.
Oh, that's easy. That would definitely be about the rise of Vanny.
That's actually a pretty good idea.
Imagine just, God, I still like, you can see me right now. I'm like going speechless now thinking about how that character was built up and then slammed down into the ground in terms of how they treated her and how they built her up, and then how her payoff in Security Breach was just complete garbage, and then how she was just completely tossed, forgotten, and actively stamped on with ruin when they tried to make them mimic the big bad. I am so like I would love to write a novel or even a novel trilogy about Vanessa and how she came across Glitchtrap and how her life became affected by the digitized subconscious of William Afton and how the Vanny costume was made, how the Vanny mask, just became a part of her personality and how she started her reign of terror in the Pizzaplex. And that drama between Vanessa the human and Vanny the monster clashing constantly. I would love to write that.
I gotta say this. Vanny is one of the biggest examples of they thought the grass was greener on the other side. They thought that Burn Trap, because Steel Wolves made it very clear they want something to do with Afton. It is made so clear in everything that they've done interviews. They like Afton. They really like the William Afton, and they're kind of jealous that they didn't get to, like, Scott killed Afton before he came to them or started working with them. They've made it clear, and I think that they gave up Vanny for Burn Trap, and then the community response made them switch to the Princess Quest ending.
Yeah, and I do kind of feel bad because I even said this in my reimagining Security Breach video. I don't think Steel Wool are like really like poorly motivated. I think I don't think they were aware of the property they had and the passion behind it
And the fan base.
Yeah.
They had no idea. So I think that would be a great idea, learning more about Vanny, because it's summarized in like those cassette tapes. Really, that's all we really know about her. And the Easter egg where you put the Vanny mask on and you hold the bunny.
Yes.
That's it. That's like all we got. And then there's the AR emails, which are obviously a mess. FNAF AR is absolutely a mess. So let's get to the good FNAF literature, or not as bad FNAF literature, the original trilogy. Now, obviously, you read those first before you got into the Fazbear Fright books and the Tales books. That was what you read first when you started this whole series. Your first initial thoughts reading those, what were they?
Okay, so I instantly when I started reading the Silver Eyes, maybe not instantly, but I was just I kind of had a suspicion that this wasn't actually going to be canon. I just thought it was going to be just an alternate retelling of what happened after the events of the games. And I described it as like in my video. I think the analogy I did was if the original games were a campfire story that your father told you, and then years later you tried to tell it to your kids, but some details were misremembered or made up because to try and fill in the pieces. That was the novel trilogy. That was the Silver Eyes. That was the FNAF story that you tried retelling, but things were either made up, forgotten, or misplaced. And to me at the time that was really cool because it showed me that Scott Cawthon was willing to take risks, willing to do something that would potentially upset his fan base who are expecting answers instead of just expecting a good story. And for what it's worth, The Silver Eyes is a competent, decent enough story. As a book itself, it's okay. It's pretty okay. I think I might reread it in the future. As a FNAF story, it's definitely interesting. If you're going in looking for answers, you're not going to like it. But if you're going in looking for a FNAF story that just hits you in all the right ways, you're going to like The Silver Eyes. And that was my impression of reading the first book, at least.
An interesting that I think about that trilogy, and if we want to talk about the broader trilogy, an interesting thing about it that I always find is that, for example, when people talk about the Tales books, a very interesting scenario we had, years ago with FNAF was William Afton was revealed through the books before the games. And Scott, I feel, did the exact same thing with the Tales books. He literally did the exact same thing where he revealed the villain, the Mimic, in the books, and then revealed it in the games, obviously. So,
a good point. Yeah.
And then, obviously, if you want to talk about the other ones, what was your favorite out of the three?
Oh, it's the Silver Eyes by a mile. As I said earlier, after the Silver Eyes, the other two just totally jumped off the rails and became completely ridiculous.
Okay, that's true. But the Silver Eyes, the Twisted ones, I think I like better.
I remember liking the first half, but then after that, it just I think once the climax happened, once Charlie was in that underground pizzeria, that was when, okay, I am checking out. This is complete bullshit.
Yeah, it got weird near the end, but I will say that I think that the graphic novel does a much better job at telling the story than the actual literature.
Yeah, and that's really saying something because I heard that a lot about the Fourth Closet, where people said that even like fans of the Fourth Closet said that the ending, like the way it was worded, the way it was presented, was super confusing. Like the explanation when a hot Charlie's talking to a regular Charlie about who they truly are,
Hmm.
and I remember in that sequence in the book was just very messily presented, and people appreciated the Fourth Closet graphic novel because it actually illustrated what they were trying to say. But that's a problem because a graphic novel adaptation should be like the cherry on top. It shouldn't be support. It shouldn't be a crutch.
It shouldn't be better. It should either be equal or lesser to the original product, right?
It should be a bonus. It shouldn't like when people say that the Fourth Closet graphic adaptation like clarified
Yep.
what the book was trying to say. That's a problem. Graphic novel adaptations of books should not do that. They should add a new perspective. They shouldn't tell the story better.
And obviously I'm obviously the I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that the original trilogy is the only way that FNAF books can really survive and be good. Like if we continue with Tales and Fazbear Frights, they're going to forever be stinkers within that. That makes sense?
I think yeah, I think they should continue writing novel trilogies or just novel sagas. These stories, these individual little novella-length stories, are just getting so exhausting and ridiculous. I don't want to follow them. I really don't because it's just so much crap being thrown at me at once from all different angles. I'd rather read another FNAF trilogy novel trilogy than like continue reading more short stories. They just by design are becoming exhausting.
And the other thing that I think people like sometimes like, oh, you guys are just pessimists, whatever. We're just like, no, we just want to have a cohesive story. And having a trilogy where Scott and his team of writers and everyone can sit down, outline what they want. What do they want to tell with the story? Honestly, I wouldn't care if the trilogy was canon to the games. I wouldn't mind a canon books to the games, but I want it to be clear from the get go, and I want it to be an actual story that I can follow with characters that I can, you know, enjoy. Like Charlie, while Charlie and all her friends were annoying, right? There were moments where you're like, oh, these characters I can actually follow along and see them progress and see how they learn from basic character development from like an elementary level. But at least you get that with the trilogy. With some of the stories in the Tales and Fazbear Frights, you wave high and you wave by. Like that's it, they're gone. Like it's just
That's
painful.
that's a good way of putting it. Yes.
It's
And
very,
I just wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind, but there's just so many of them, and they're so insistent on just putting out more and more. Like
and that's the issue.
people are getting tired. I can tell. I mean, I know I'm getting tired, obviously, but that's because I'm crotchety and have the soul of a 70-year-old man. But I wouldn't be surprised if like even the diehard fans are saying, okay, let's get on with it.
uh Sumi to answer Sumi, I just read a comment. Good comment. I like Frights and Tales though. It's fair to talk about the writing, and I'm not crapping on some of the stories. Like I think we can agree. I think you said you like Lonely Freddy. We can agree some of these stories are good.
Some of the stories are legitimately good, well written
Yes,
pieces of literature.
Prankster. That's like one of my favorites right now. I love that.
Prankster, yeah, yeah.
Prankster's good. There are good stories. I'm not saying that they're all bad, but I
Hmm.
will state that most of them are bad. Like Gumdrop Angel, Kids at Play. Like
Hmm.
there's some truly bad stinkers in this one. So just gonna be honest, I'd rather have a consistent story with characters that I can grow to like and grow to actually maybe not like but tolerate. Whereas in this one, you through the first three pages of the story, you're like, well, this is gonna suck. Like you just Kids at Play. I still hate that story. Sorry, I'm having flashbacks. All right,
Uh,
so
I,
go
I
ahead.
mentioned I mentioned in my video, like that someone, Scott or whoever, was just out driving one day saw one of those signs in the road and thought, that I know that's what happened with that story.
And it's the same for Fetch with Cleve Baxter. You mentioned it in your video.
Yes, should I come up with a condition for that as well?
You probably should. If you see it one more time, you have to make a condition.
Deal.
All right, we're gonna have to find a new one for it. I'll let you make the title for it and like the name for it, because you'll probably name it off of maybe the Cleve back. I don't know.
Clevitis, I don't know.
Yeah, Clevitis or something. But I will state that Cleve Baxter's was actually okay. Listen, we can agree to disagree on this, but Cleve Baxter's wasn't actually that bad, because it provided like a parallel for Agony and Remnant, like emotions affecting the world around you. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Like, that actually makes sense. Like, people are saying right now that it seems like within the games and the books, I think the new book came out. We're not spoiling any of that, because there's people that really want to read it themselves, so I won't do any of that. But I will state that people are stating that the book seems to push more of an idea that Remnant isn't just soul juice, it's like powerful and agony, like they're powerful emotions caused by traumatic events. And Cleve Baxter's introduction to Fetch, while being very random, let's be honest, it was random, actually made a little bit of sense if you compare it to the rest of the universe.
Yeah, and that trope, and I don't know if I elaborate on this, that trope doesn't really annoy me. It's just it's like you said, if there's a purpose, then I like it. I do it myself in my own writing. I'll find some esoteric scientific concept or figure and incorporate them into the story and make them relevant. I mean, I think we saw it most recently in the Monty Within, and there was a lot more annoying. So it can be done right. It can be done well.
Such an awful story. Listen, to anyone that likes Tiger Rock, okay, I'm only buying these books and reading them for the epilogue about the Mimic. I don't even care about the stories anymore. They are so bad.
You know, like, it's funny because with Monty Within, I saw some commenters like implying that it was supposed to be like a comedy. But I just want to read the back of one of these books. I'm just going to grab them off my shelf, okay?
Okay.
It says, this collection of terrifying tales is enough to rattle even the most hardened Five Nights at Freddy's fans. Comedy? Still think it's a comedy?
The Monty Within was so bad. What was the tattoo one called?
Bleeding Heart.
Bleeding Heart was awful. I just hate all of them. They're so bad. Tiger Rock I tolerated because it had like some lore implications and whatever, but the rest of them,
the first half of Tiger Rock was decent.
It was readable. That's how I'll give it that. Readable. I think that's sad that that's a compliment. That it's readable. It's illegible.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah. So we're now going to get into some. We're going to transition because I have another topic, and I think I made it clear from the beginning. But Nick is a writer, so Nick is going to have some perspectives, and as he's mentioned before, about writing and being an author. And I'll ask you more about your personal experience as an author. But I almost want to throw the possibility out there. Are there any? I actually want to ask you a question. Are there any rules in the writing world about these Fazbear Frights being possibly being AI written? Because sometimes I feel like they are.
Was it like a theory or something?
Are there rules again, like I know that maybe I don't know if there's like a writers union I know there's a writers union or guild in the film industry, but is there one within the author industry that would prevent them from using AI to write these Fazbear Frights and Tales books?
I know that I know that a lot of like publishers have already like stepped forward and said we will not accept AI works, and if you and they've been employing I guess softwares or like filters to try and detect AI language, because AI is still at a point where it will give predictable sequences of words or certain phrases or certain techniques that filters can detect. So I know that the publishing industry is definitely taking a very hard stance against it. I know there's a few that are taking AI submitted works, but I have seen a lot more pushback than I have seen acceptance, which I think is a really like based move.
I actually I'm interested if you made an AI read the Fazbear Frights and the Tales books. I wonder if it could actually spit out a semi-cohesive Tales and Fazbear Fright, because as we've mentioned,
I think it could, because just the way that all those stories are written the same.
They're formulaic.
Just the same POV, the same style of antagonist. I wouldn't be surprised if the AI even intentionally like misspelled things. So,
Ooh. Switched
man.
characters' names?
Yeah, just switch a character names here and there. Let's do a little trolling, you know. Let's play some pranks.
Yeah,
That's when you know that the AI is truly like beaten us, is when it starts incorporating the mistakes in the novel, because it just recognizes that the mistakes are so frequent and so like endemic to the story.
Yeah, so I actually want to. I just want to talk about AI for a second because it's a huge topic. I just got a 1 hour and a half phone call with a friend of mine who's in the music industry,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about AI, and he has a very different take on. He has a very different take on AI. He thinks that AI is a way that can be used. Actually, it can be a tool. Now, obviously, there are dangers because he's in the music industry. He's like, I wouldn't want to have my job of doing client work and making beats and making EDM tracks and all this stuff for other people, and then having that taken away from an AI. But obviously, AI presents a danger in every industry. I mean, I don't know. Do you know what Quibblecop is?
Quibble, I definitely have heard of it before, but I don't know what it is.
Quibblecop, the YouTuber.
Oh, yes,
You know
That's
that?
the
Yes.
yes. Now I know who that is. Okay.
If you guys don't know, Quibblecop is a YouTuber that used to do like 2 uploads a day. Massive credit to him. He earned his money. He used to upload twice a day. It was like, it was, it wasn't that generic in the moment. It was like twice a day gaming content. It was like a straight grind, part of a group. Did a ton of time, billions of views as YouTuber. But recently, Quibblecop started a studio and started doing AI generated content. And I mean, I don't want to be mean, but I will. It's bad. It's really bad, and it's not that entertaining. But Quibblecop stands by the idea that that's a good thing for the industry, and that pretty soon AI will take over everything. And now I want to ask you. We mentioned it for a second on the YouTube, and you mentioned it really briefly for publishers. But how do you feel about AI possibly intruding on your space as a writer and author?
I do share your friend's sentiments about AI being useful as a tool. However, I think I really look at the advance of AI from a really existential perspective, because I've come to realize that really, like, what is the difference between me writing my novel in Google Drive on my PC and ancient man smearing his handprints on a cave wall? What is the difference? The medium, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Technology, sure. Not much beyond that, though, if you really think about it. And I'm realizing now that with the advance of AI in writing, we are witnessing, like, I am there witnessing in real time the way we tell stories just fundamentally flip, do a complete 180. Because despite the difference in medium and technology, there is like practically no difference between me and the caveman. We are taking our thoughts and we are expressing them in the way that we know best, which comes from the brain and the heart, and if you're so inclined, the soul. And AI threatens to just supplant that. And that concerns me. It really does. I don't know. I don't know how what else to say. I don't know what else to say. It concerns me.
It's scary. Like from my point of view, obviously I don't have AI going for my job just yet. Like, the Quibblecop AI is actually a good thing because it's showing how bad it is and how behind it is. But I know that as a writer, it's actually getting a little bit ahead. And obviously, AI has to source everything from somewhere, right? It has to
Yes.
learn from something. And I think that's a very valid complaint, is that it has to learn from other people's. It studies other people's literature, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has to study other people's works and everything to do something. So technically, that's not creating something original. So to I'm going to give a prediction here in AI, and everyone can hate on me for this one, but I think pretty soon we're going to start seeing people sell their work to AI to have them study it. And like you're signing a deal. For example, I mean, I'm just going to make up a fake example. Uh, you know, there's Bob. Bob does art for a very long time, creates fan art of different kinds, just different styles, drawing a bunch of different things. And then one day someone's gonna be like, "Hey, I have an AI that I'm trying to learn create, AI generated art. What if I bought you out for like $200,000? My AI gets to study your art and it gets to use it in perpetuity when it's creating artwork." Do you think the same thing could happen possibly for literature?
Oh, definitely. Different mediums might be, have their own unique aspects, but overall, art is art, and art is a business. Business will boom regardless of what the medium's adherents think about it. The same things that happen in literature, the same business-oriented vices, can occur in anywhere. So I can totally see that happening.
Do you think that that is good? Like, do you think that would be fair at all? How would you feel like if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, for $500,000, you have to give me a bunch of your literature." Let's say down the road. Obviously, we'll talk about your book actually, and we'll talk about some of the work that you probably have coming out in the future. But if you had someone 10 years down the line, you have all your work, and someone said, "Hey, I'm gonna buy you out, and I want to let my AI study your work, and then I'll be able to generate things, but I'm giving you a cash amount up front."
Like, it's just one of those things where it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. I know, I'm sorry to pull out of this answer, but I really couldn't say. This is something that I'd have to dwell on for a very long time, I think.
No,
Because
that's fair.
so someone offers like a stupid amount of money, like you said, $500,000. Of course, there's going to be that part of me, and there's going to be very well-meaning critics who would say, "I can't believe you just turned away $500,000." And because that the person offering the 500K is just gonna move on to another author who is going to be more willing to accept it, and he's going to have his reasons as well. So it's just a very like finicky scenario, and I almost feel like what's the word, strained, pressured, put upon, that I have to be growing up in this time and creating and trying to be a decent, honest artist in this time where this technology is happening, whether I like it or not. It just doesn't seem like, for lack of a better term, it doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, and obviously I know that I threw a pretty big question at you. I threw a curveball at you. I don't think you were expecting that one. But I do think that the future, this is like really weird prediction on my part, but I do think in the future, companies who use AI will be going to people and being like, "Hey, listen, I'll pay you a cash amount to let us study your work, and we're gonna use that, and in the future,
Yeah, and so you remember that theory, and everyone watching remember that theory as well. I remember there have just, even back a few years ago, I just remember people saying AI will never get to the point where it can write a whole novel. Now it is.
Mm-hmm.
People, you say we will get to that point. People who say we will never get to that point are almost always proven wrong, because, like I said, business is booming. Business booms whether you like it or not.
Actually, I have to throw this in. My friend literally just said this, and you're literally it is actually so funny that you're saying this. It's exactly what he said. He said a couple years ago, like a year ago, people were saying that AI would not be able to create like melodies, because we're talking music, so we're talking about someone in the music industry. Said AI is not going to be able to make melodies and won't be able to do all this other stuff. That's what AI is doing right now. It won't be able to use voices to like. I don't know if you know who Jay Schlatt is. I've seen so many funny Jay Schlatt AI songs, and some of them actually sound like he's singing it. They won't be able to do some lyrics. Like every time people say that, it completely does it and just does it within a few months and gets to that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, if you make a prediction about this, it is going to come true. Like too many predictions made back in like 2018, 2019 have come true in 2023. So let's just check on the state of things maybe 3 years from now, and let's see who was right, the doomsayers or the naysayers.
Do you think that obviously I don't want to? I mean, I don't want to go like too far into this because AI. I can only talk about AI for hours because I have a lot of different thoughts and beliefs on that. But do you think that do you think it will reach a federal level of regulation on AI, or do you think that it will forever be like in the hands of the companies to deal with it?
Never underestimate the government's ability to take things for their own and then make them worse.
That's true. That's true.
So short answer, yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's going to grow. It's going to grow to the point where the government can't ignore it. Just like
Do you,
cryptocurrency.
do you remember like a few years ago the word deepfake was going around?
Yes, deep fake AI. Yes.
Now, people were so scared of deep faking because you could just make up someone's voice like and have them say the most horrible thing and you couldn't tell the difference. You could recreate someone's face and they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That was a few years ago. Now that's just happened, and any like dickhead on YouTube with an internet connection can recreate perfect replicas of anyone saying anything.
I can
Like
make a video of you.
we're
Yeah,
not
I can make a video of you doing something horrible right now.
we're not we don't, and we don't even call it deep faking anymore. That's just content.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's gonna get to the point where we can't tell what video is real or fake. You're probably gonna get a video pretty soon of Mr. Beast saying something awful or doing something, someone trying to discredit him. They'll go for the celebrities at first, obviously.
Right.
And it'll be like a version of like leverage, or people will try to like, get money. Sorry. People try to get money out of people, and you're definitely right though. It will, every time we say something's not going to happen, it will happen. So obviously we just talked about AI. I want to go back and I want to talk about something that you mentioned in your videos. Obviously steel wool was the common denominator in your video with, reimagining and then not reimagining Security Breach. I want to ask you on your take. If you were to give me an analysis, and someone who's a consumer of FNAF media, you've seen how Scott's done it for years. When it comes to Steel Wool, what is your take, view, and prediction for how they are going to run FNAF?
So here's the thing that I realize about Steel Wool. As I said before, I still think that they just didn't realize what they had and just told a bad story with Security Breach. And you mentioned this many times in your videos. You said something like how Steel Wool as a studio wasn't capable of taking on a story, a style of gameplay like that, and it shows in Security Breach. That's your words, right?
Yes, my belief is that they were an AR/VR company. They still are, and they were not ready for the size and magnitude of a project like Security Breach.
Yeah, and it's just so like it's fascinating to me because we have witnessed a franchise just write itself into a hole with the way they're trying to shoehorn the mimic into it. Like the dominoes were set up to introduce the mimic from Tales of the Pizzaplex in Ruin, but then they did that, and that's just 11 kinds of wrong for a whole bunch of other reasons. They have written themselves into a hole. It's like I said, it's fascinating to watch. And I remember I saw like a comment on one of my videos, and I wanted to respond to it, but I couldn't. And it said something like, we're all aware that the mimic was a retcon. Like no one's debating that. So why are you making such a big deal out of it? And I was thinking about that. I'm thinking like my first reaction was, well, it'd be nice if someone at Steel Wool admitted it was a retcon, but then I realized they can't do that. Really, like, how it is such bad PR, such a bad image, such a bad image to base as a game studio or as someone who creates stories just admits that you wrote a bad story.
And then and then in the next DLC, you take that all away. You admit that you messed up.
They made their bed, and they made their bed. Now they're lying in it.
Yeah.
and they cannot admit that they wrote a bad story, that they wrote themselves into a hole. If they do admit it, that's weak and that's terrible PR. However, on the flip side, they're not admitting it, and which is the viable thing to do for a game company, to not admit your mistakes. But at the same time, it still comes off as dishonest, because it's like I said, they just totally swept aside Vanny. They totally just recontextualized the original endings in Security Breach, to try and push the Mimic, and they're just praying that the fan base won't notice.
And the
They,
other,
I just,
oh, go ahead.
they're just like not in a very good light right now, because they messed up twice in a row. That's all I can say. They messed up twice in a row, and I know Help Wanted 2 is not going, presumably it's not going to be in the context of the Security Breach storyline, but I think that a follow up to Ruin is inevitable, and I just like I am like morbidly intrigued to see what they do next, because it's going to be ridiculous, and they're going to have to own up to their story decisions, which are objectively bad.
I think that, I mean, I hate to say it, a couple points. A, you're completely right that they made their bed, they're gonna have to lie in it. And I think what they did, that's extremely dumb on their part. And I almost applaud them for it, because people didn't like at Burn Trap. They liked the Blob, right? If you remember the original reception, they liked the Blob. They didn't like Burn Trap.
I'll take your word for it. I didn't like either.
Okay, but that was like general. If you were like, oh, the Blob's cool, it's like the giant, it's like everyone in one giant, everyone, their agony, and then everyone, and then it talked about, and then it went to the Burn Trap. Everyone was like, boo, give us Vanny, we want another, this wasn't the villain we wanted, boo, we wanted a new one, someone. And I think what happened is Steel Wool decided, hey, let's be tricky. Let's have the Blob show for 1 second, a microsecond. You know that in Ruin, right?
Yes.
1 second, the Blob appears. You want to know what's happened? No one knows what's going on with the Burn Trap ending. No one knows. Everyone's confused. And then I have people in my comment section talking about, oh, the Burn Trap ending is real. Burn Trap is real. He exists. It did happen. And this is just me. I'm just like, okay. Well, how am I going to explain? I mean, thanks, Steel Wool. I guess I have a new video to make. You know what I mean? Was that the goal? You guys wanted to give me an extra video to make content of?
Yeah, and it's like I said before, they're just depending on us to not hold them accountable, and us to just accept it. And I know that, like, I'm not much of a gamer, so I don't put too much stake. So I don't like put too much stake into defending the games. So that's why I feel nothing when I critique them so hard.
Unbiased review.
But other people, they will twist themselves into pretzels to try and justify the story decisions, and that's just really. Can you think of any other like property whose fans are so like willing to just take whatever they've got?
I really can't think of any franchise where people haven't been this angry. The only one that I can think of is possibly, Garten of Banban, or like the real fans of that franchise, because they're all kids. They just don't care.
Get me started on that. Yeah.
The only other one I can think of within the mascot horror genre is slightly Poppy Playtime, because I did have comments on my, I did have like comments on my mascot horror video, and they were like, you can't judge Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime's fine. And I'm just like, come on, guys. They tried pulling an NFT scam on you. Like, let's not be. And then the first chapter was awful. So there are, but no one's ever done it like FNAF. It's a short answer.
Right.
They've never. I don't know Steel Wool's done it. And then you read my script, and I do have to thank you for that. You read my script on one of my upcoming videos, and where I talk about how it's not that I don't like the Mimic. Guys, an upcoming video of mine, just in case you don't know, an upcoming video, I'm talking about the villain of FNAF behind the Mimic and everything. And in that video, I do want to mention that I don't hate the Mimic, but the Mimic can't do all these other things, and I feel like Steel Wool and Scott might be a little disappointed that we haven't picked up on it. You know how the prototype on the bottom of Glaremark Freddy's foot? There's all like the emails that like Vanessa wasn't qualified to have the job but Vanessa got it because someone from the higher
Yeah.
up. Like,
Yeah.
they've been teasing some massive villain is behind this, or someone is behind this.
Yeah, I can't believe it. It's been right in front of our faces. It's definitely Eleanor, right?
I hate you. I actually hate you. You did that on purpose. I hate you. I hate you. Oh my goodness, you just did that. Nick Carlson Press. You're probably the first person to actually really anger me on this show so far.
Oh wow, wow.
Wow, I can't believe you did that.
So that's another thing to add to my list.
I can't believe that you just did that. You actually just said Eleanor.
Oh boy,
That
she
is
sucks.
borderline evil. That is borderline evil. Not only
Hey,
was
hey,
it evil, it's evil to insinuate that Eleanor should ever be talked about again. I know that you've talked about it before, but the Stitch Wraith epilogues were so good at first.
Oh yeah, they fell off hard.
They actually had the worst fall off of all time. And then how did you feel about the Mimic epilogues? Just as we kind of wrap this up.
So far, they are overstretched, but the story they're trying to tell is fine. They really are just stretching it out as far as they can, just to kind of place the story within the context of. I think there's going to be 9 Tales of the Pizzaplex books total.
Someone told me that this was the last one.
There's definitely one more coming out. One of them has a B7 too.
Oh, that's the one that just came out. That'll be the 8th one.
Just came out?
Oh, sorry. Nick, I'm sorry. Nick, I apologize. They are the reason why I haven't talked about it really because I know some of you want to read it just in case, but Nick Nick, the next like book releases. I don't know how they do it, but someone gets a copy of the next Tales, Frights, whatever you want. They get a hold of it somehow and they're able to share it. And it's like months before. I'm pretty sure it's like in October that it's releasing, but they got it like a week ago. And they did like a live read or something like that where they revealed the basically the whole story. Yeah, and they just read it and people get to make their own.
Well, I like to pretend to be a normal person and just wait for them to come out like everyone else. So
I don't even know how you'd get it early, to be honest with you. I have no idea how they do it, but supposedly they must have someone on the inside that they pay money to give them access to it. But
I think it has something to do with the ebooks. I think there are people who can. I think because they're uploaded to ebook platforms like much earlier before their actual publication day. I think it has something to do with that because I think every time I've seen like a leak of these things, it's always been like in like Kindle format.
That's true. But I just want to let you know, the next one, I know that you might not have seen it, but there was like panic within the FNAF space like 2 days ago where people were like, some creators were telling others to like email Scott for clarification on the tales. And it's because the next Mimic story does not confirm the canonicity of Tales to the games like as people wanted. It did not.
That's funny.
So they instantly started panicking.
That's too funny. I mean, just they got bamboozled again. What can I say?
They got banned. I'm just kidding. I don't even know why that came to mind. But yeah, they definitely were very angry, and it created this whole drama. People were emailing Scott, and I don't want to like say anything, but I will say this to the people out there who were ripping me for not believing and ripping other people for not believing Tales were canon to the games. And then the second that there's doubt, and then you're like, no, you can't critique us and our theories. You can't do that. You can't do that. Oh, what gave you the right to call me an idiot? I had people telling me and other people, really telling me to go like F ourselves and we're the dumbest of the franchise and it's stupid that we're allowed on the internet because we believe that they're not canon. Like, oh, now it's like, no, you can't criticize us. What are you talking about? We shouldn't be criticizing each other anyway. It's a bear game. It is a literal game about a animatronic bear. Let's chillax. Yeah.
You got a point.
Okay. All right. I just want to say before we end here, I gotta ask Nick, where? Obviously, your crowning achievement. If you guys don't know, Nick, as I said earlier at the beginning of this, is smarter than all of us because Nick wrote a book, and the book is called Hell's Golf. Now, I heard that you wanted to do something about like a quick promo for the book.
Oh yes. Folks, if you like reading stories that are any of these words: zany, briny, gross, vulgar, absurd, just plain awesome, that's 3
Yes.
words, then you need to check out Hell's Gulf. Is that mirrored? Is that flipped?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay,
I
good.
can read it.
It's flipped on my end. Hell's Gulf by Nick Carlson. That's
Who is
me.
that? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, so that's me. That's my name on this book. You can find it on your favorite online bookstore or at www.templedarkbooks.com.
Or go to
And
Nick's
that-
channel, and you'll find the link right there.
That's right. And thus concludes the only reason I ever agreed to this talk.
Ah,
Right. Sorry to break it to you, Sandwichly, but
I was used.
You were just a vessel.
I was used. I bet it'll have better grammar than the FNAF books. Yes, Martin. Very true.
100% better grammar and a lot more colorful language too. So be ready for that. Be ready for a lot of good humor.
And I also got to ask you. I heard. I think I have like the Temple Dark books on that stuff. Like I see them on Twitter because you retweet them. I'm not calling it X. I'm not calling it repost. I'm calling it retweet, and I'm calling it Twitter. I saw you retweet it. What do you have cooking in the oven? If you want to let everyone know what you have cooking in the oven for your next release or whatever's coming out next for you.
Yes, I do have a prequel to Hell's Gulf coming out sometime this year. I cannot confirm the date yet. We're still waiting for the cover art to come out, but once the cover art comes out, I will definitely let you all know. It is a prequel and is called The God Tide.
There we go, everyone. So you should definitely go check out Nick's channel and go check out his book, Hell's Golf. And you should definitely be subscribed to his channel because you never know what's going to come out. And also, I think that Nick, if you guys really want to, so what interests me about Nick's channel, I love the FNAF books because while it is funny watching someone lose their sanity reading these books as time goes on, it is kind of funny, like just seeing like your patience dwindle as time goes on. I will state that Nick also has very relatable content in general. As I mentioned, while I love his FNAF books, one of my favorite videos of his is him talking about just random encounters with wildlife. So, I gotta say, Nick's channel is definitely worth checking out. There's content there for everyone, whether you like FNAF, whether you like scary games. Like, you made a video about Outlast. That was like the basis of your content.
Yeah, it was my first viral video. I think it has like 33,000 views right now.
He's made content about Outlast, and then I saw your Oppenheimer video. Did you if you had to rate that movie compared to other like all-time releases of other movies you've seen, does it at all peak that list?
Oppenheimer was a great film. It was just such refined, careful, like honest filmmaking. It made me it made me happy watching Oppenheimer because it just gave me hope that there's still great filmmaking and great passion out there.
It is interesting. It is funny that Logan Paul walked out of Oppenheimer because he said there was too much talking.
I don't doubt that, but at the same time, I know he just probably said that just to get engagement because he is almost like 2 steps away from completely irrelevant right now.
That's true. This fight and KSI with Prime and all that is the only thing keeping him relevant. I think that though I dislike him on every single level, I will give him the slightest like lemon drop, like squeeze a lemon of what's left of it to get a drop of like credit, like that the credit fruit, just a little drop. Mm-hmm. I'll give him a tiny drop for the WWE move because that was smart.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually, I have to give credit there. So, Nick, I have to thank you for joining me today. I've had a very nice chat. I know that this might cause some pain because we did have to talk about the FNAF books. So I know that might have caused some harm. And I do apologize for that.
That's all right. I'm used to it. Thank you for hosting me. This was a great opportunity, and it just felt good to talk. Felt good to talk about things that I liked and things that I don't like. So...
I do apologize for that.
You are a great interviewer. So applaud yourself for that.
Thank you. I just want to let you all know that this will be the last interview that I do for a while. So I am thankful to have Nick If you guys, there was an unreleased interview with Nick because I was trying to do like a podcast at one point, and that never saw the light of day. But that was like when I talked to Rytoast and everyone, and then I just couldn't fit it in, and I just didn't realize. I realized that I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to do live interviews. So this is actually what the culmination. So it's only just that I have the second person, one of the first few people that actually wanted to talk to me. It's very nice to talk to Nick, and it's very nice that this is the person that I get to end this off. So I want to thank you all for joining me, and thank you, Nick, for joining me. This is going to be the last interview for a while. I want to thank everyone that's joined. Nick, Biohazard, Alper, we had Mystical Ram. I want to thank everyone who's joined me. This will be the last one for a while. So I hope you guys have enjoyed these. I'm very excited for what we'll do. Maybe later, maybe next year we'll do some more. But that's it for these for now. Nick, I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank you for talking to me. Thank you for giving me an hour and a half of your time. And Martin, I saw your message earlier. That was actually hilarious. You could tell how long we've been talking because the sun's been going down. Your room is now pitch black.
That's my pleasure. My
right.
pleasure.
All right, guys. Nick's going to go cry after this, and he's going to go burn some FNAF books, and I'm probably going to go do the same. I'll talk to you guys later. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and I'll catch you guys on the next upload. Bye. Or next live stream. I don't really care at this point. I'm just going to make some content. Interact with it. Buy my